7 years ago, the Switch got an overlooked mech action game called Daemon X Machina or Daemon Cross Machina. It didn't make a huge splash at release, but I honestly never thought it would get a sequel. And yet here we are in 2025 with Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion. This, like the first game, is an unapologetic love letter to the genre. Created by former Armored Core staff before that series made its own return a few years ago, the fact that this game even exists is a surprise to me. And what's more surprising is just how much game they packed inside. So strap into your exosuit, pilot. It's time to fly, shoot, and loot. I didn't follow this game very much before release, to be honest. Having loved the first game, I knew I was gonna go in regardless of trailers or previews. It's dangerous thinking, I know, but what I got here was way more than just more of the same. It's familiar, but expands way more in unexpected ways than I ever imagined. The original Daemon X Machina acted as a spiritual successor to Armored Core during that franchise's very long hiatus. It wasn't perfect, but its loot-driven structure and grindy multiplayer loop kept me hooked for hours. Titanic Scion retains that addictive loop while pushing it into larger-scale ideas. This time around, you pilot a mech-sized exosuit called an Arsenal. First I was a bit worried that the smaller scale would feel like a downgrade, but honestly it doesn't. These suits are every bit as customizable as the original mechs, from its head, arms, legs, body, and the array of weapons that you can use. 2 in your hands, 2 in reserve, a shoulder mount, and even extra gear. You're still building your own walking war machine in just a smaller scale. And better yet, a few hours in, just a little bit of a spoiler, the larger mech does make a return as a sort of super mode. They aren't as customizable as before, but they hit like a truck and look incredible in the middle of an intense fight. Customization is where Titanic Scion shines brightest. The loot drops directly from enemies and you can scavenge them and equip new parts immediately in the field. That mechanic alone makes the grind surprisingly fun. You're constantly tweaking builds mid-mission, experimenting with new weapons and attachments on the fly. Beyond basic stats, attachments and factors add layers of depth to this game. Attachments buff ammo, mobility, or damage, while factors grant extra abilities and passives. Want to slam enemies with new combos, throw up energy shields, or stack passive buffs like faster recovery? There's dozens of these to hunt down and fuse. The system is deep, and hardcore players will really get into it, but it's a playground for breaking the game in new, satisfying ways if you really dig into it. But there is a bit of a catch. The factor side of what I just mentioned mutates your character into some really ugly forms. It's a bad visual trade-off, but thankfully the cosmetics can hide it later, and it's not a deal breaker, especially since you're covered in armor most of the game. I remember the first game having something like this as well, and I don't think anyone liked it then either, and yeah, it just still looks really silly no matter what you try to do with it. The core combat is fast, fluid, and fun. Shooting, boosting, melee, flashy specials, it's all here and it feels punchy. Standard weapons like rifles, swords, mixed with stranger, unique armaments that are genuinely exciting to come across. In addition to stylish finishers like aerial slams and spinning gun kata moves, the combat rarely feels dull. That said, the game isn't without its rough edges. The camera struggles in boss fights, especially against the massive or hyper-fast enemies. Human-sized bosses are also kind of hard to keep track of visually, and some of their movement gimmicks feel underused outside of their particular arenas. Enemy variety as well is pretty thin when I think about it. You'll see the same fodder enemies across all the biomes, and even those maybe have some unique variants if you really look for them. Still, boss fights themselves are often a highlight. The major villains bring unique mechanics, and stumbling upon the optional bosses out in the open world will give you some of the best moments in the game, for sure. Titanic Scion swaps out their earlier mission-based format from the first game for an open world this time, and it's honestly a mixed bag. The movement here is fast and fluid. You can dash, boost, and fly right from the start. It makes traversal a joy. It genuinely feels pretty good to move around in this game. But there's also vehicles, motorcycles, jeeps, and even horses. But when you can fly with little penalty, it feels like the novelties of the other travel mechanics just feel unnecessary. They're just there for spice, and that's good enough, I guess. Also, the bike does transform into a mobile turret, but is that gimmick enough to make it worth it riding around on the bike instead of flying? I don't think so. The world is big and pretty varied in its terrain detail. There's 3 different biomes, and in those biomes there's multiple regions that have some really interesting variety. Like in the forest area there's this huge waterfall, and in the desert there's this giant red tornado. There's some uniqueness in here even though there's only 3 different maps to explore in technicality. But what it is light on is meaningful content. There are dungeons, and sometimes they flirt with roguelike ideas. There's keys to find, randomized loot, light puzzle elements, and more, but they all share the same bland visual style. It's either a lab or a cave, and that's literally it. I often found myself ignoring them unless I really needed to go into them, or I was just curious randomly as I was passing by. So exploration is fun in short bursts thanks to its movement speed and general ability to fly, but the world itself feels like a stage for grinding rather than a place to discover. And here's where the game gets its most predictable notes. Titanic Scion's story is pure mecha anime melodrama, and I mean that in a good and bad way. It's jargon-filled, messy, and often scatterbrained in its approach, with overlapping plot lines and archetypical characters. On the downside, its narrative feels more functional than organic. Its plot twists happen because they need to, not because they flow naturally into events. On the upside, it is entertaining in a low-quality Gundam-esque kind of way, with cool designs and a few neat touches, like optional boss encounters being tied to dialogue choices. It's not a story that'll stick with you, but it fits the tone of the game pretty well, and the optional boss encounters based on what you talk about add some replay value that'll keep you coming back for more, maybe just for a few chapters or so. But something that Titanic Scion does really well is its grind. It's a grind that's very addictive for chasing loot, tweaking your build, unlocking factors for abilities. It's a cycle that kept me coming back for more even when the story was faltering or felt repetitive in its world design. And even after the credits roll, there's dozens of hours of content left to explore. You got optional dungeons, boss rematches, side quests. You can do all of it co-op, and there's even an arena that breathes extra life into the game considerably. It's easy to log in and just have that one more mission moment where you just keep going and lose an entire evening experimenting with the game's builds or weapon variety. So after I rolled credits, I was left conflicted with Titanic Scion. Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion is far from flawless. Its enemy variety is weak, the open world feels genuinely undercooked if you really take a hard look at it, and its story is messy, and the camera can be a headache in some of those crazier encounters. Those are all real, genuine problems and criticisms I have of the game. But they didn't stop me from enjoying the game, it just stopped the game from reaching greatness. Despite all of this, I had a genuinely good time. The combat is fast and satisfying, the customization is deeper than deep and rewarding, and the grind is surprisingly addictive. It's not a game for everyone, and its flaws are very obvious once you play it, but they might turn away a few players, but it might be just what you need for others like me. The positives here for me personally outweighed the negatives. I had fun here. I had fun experimenting, I had fun grinding, I had fun blasting through boss fights on repeat. And I kept playing in co-op even, because the loop just works. So would I recommend it? Well, if you're a fan of the genre, then yes, though with tempered expectations. For everyone else, I'd wait for a sale. Titanic Scion is the definition of a flawed but enjoyable game. It's not great in any one aspect other than its customization, but it's absolutely fun if it does indeed click with you. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters most. It made me want to keep playing, and I did. And I will continue to as soon as I get done putting this review up, because it's pretty fun, and I've got a few co-op friends who want to grind out some of those optional bosses, especially that secret orb boss that unlocks near the end. But either way, I've been Brian at Valkerion Gaming, and I hope you enjoyed this review of Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion. This one was a long time coming. I took a bit of a longer break than I thought I would for reviews. I kind of had a lot of stuff going on in summer, and you know how it is, you just kind of get off the rails a little bit. But we're back, and we got this review knocked out, and I hope you enjoyed it. Either way, please like, sub, hit the bell for notifications and all of that good stuff. Especially leave comments down below if you played this game, if you enjoyed it, or maybe you're on the fence about it, and hopefully this review maybe gave you a bit of information either which way to make a decision here. Either way, I hope to see you again next time. Good night, good game, and stay safe out there.